I'm Dave.
And I'm Pete.
And you're watching Into the Studio. Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Dave.
And I'm Pete. And today we're going to talk about something that every guitar player should know how to do, but unfortunately they don't.
Too many don't.
And it struck me as just odd. We're going to talk about changing strings and setting up your guitar. Now, I was down at the guitar shop the other day, because, you know, we pretty much live in there. And the owner had mentioned that if I wanted a set of strings put on my guitar, he could do it for me because I was buying strings. And I said, why would I want you to put my strings on? He said, well, do you know how to put strings on? And I looked at him like he was crazy. Like, of course I know how to put strings on. I'm a guitar player.
Yep, a lot of people don't know how to do it.
And, you know, they charge between $40 and $60 to do that for a setup. That's insane.
So today we're going to save you a lot of money.
And teach you how to do something.
Try to save you.
And we're going to teach you how to do something that really, honestly, isn't that hard and can be kind of relaxing for the most part.
Especially when you get to play them when they're brand new.
Oh, there's nothing like the feel of new strings, man. It's
Absolutely.
like playing air.
Yes, it is.
All right. So what do you say we get started?
Let's do it.
All right.
All right.
Okay, how we doing? So now we're going to change the strings, do a setup, oil the neck, and basically set the guitar up. Now, it's a sad fact that a lot of guitar players don't know how to change their own strings. And you go to Music Go Round, Guitar Center, or any shop, it's between $30 and $50 to get your guitar set up. Here we're going to show you how to save $30 to $50 and spend about $9 on a set of strings, roughly. Now, with each set of strings, here we have some Diodarios. These are 9s. They come in 8, 9, 10, and 11s. And what the size is starts on your basic E string. Inside each pack, there's some form of a guide that will tell you what string goes where. Usually on the bottom of the string it's going to be a different color, or there'll be an individual packs labeled which string is which. So now first thing you want to do is unwind the strings. Just get them loose because you can cut them off. And it's a lot easier to cut them off than it is to sit here and try and unwind everything. Oh, that one's broken. Okay, so then when you cut them, you want to make sure they're not under a lot of tension and just clip them off. If they're under tension, you run the risk of losing an eye. Okay. Now to get the strings out, unwind them and they'll come right off. Set them somewhere and don't leave them laying around because if you step on them, it's gonna hurt.
Once you have all the strings removed, now we're going to concentrate on the neck and the body. First, get yourself a microfiber cloth. Just give it a nice once over to get any dust out. This way, you're going to get to those hard to reach places that you can't usually get with the strings on the guitar. You can buy there's all different kind of brands out there that you can buy for different guitar care products. They have conditioners and waxes and everything else. So I like to start by taking an adjustable wrench and I will wiggle the tuners a little bit. So like this one you can see is a little off. So you don't have to go crazy with it. You don't got to crank on them. Now it's nice and tight. Now we picked up this guitar used, so we wanted to give it a good once over. These are called string trees. These help hold the tension from the break angle from the guitar's nut. So again, you want to check them. Like this one and this one, they're a little loose, but that's okay. You just don't want them very loose. They could be a little loose so they could flex as the string's going in there. Next, you could buy these online. What I do, I just use a piece of cardboard. And you go on top of the fret so you can protect the fretboard. And this is 4/0 gauge steel wool. And what this will do is this will shine up the frets to take any of that finger oil and everything off of them. As you can see, the difference between that one and that one already. And you're going to do this all the way down the fretboard. Once you have all of the frets with the finger oil and everything cleaned off relatively well, I use Dunlop's 65 fretboard cleaner. This is a lemon oil. This ran me $6, and this bottle I've had for years. It will last a long time. All you do is you open the bottle, you squeeze it a little bit, and you push down until you see the oil start to come out onto the applicator pad. Now it's starting to come out. You just rub every fret and you get it nice and conditioned. You really want to get that into the wood. This is going to hydrate this wood so it doesn't dry out and crack. You want to make sure that you don't use any other kind of oils. You want to make sure that it is a conditioning oil for a fretboard. You're not going to use motor oil, cooking oil, anything like that. That will ruin the fretboard and ruin your instrument. This is actually, it's specially designed just to make sure that it conditions the board to get the proper amount of moisture into the fretboard. Once you let this sit a good few minutes and you let that really soak into the wood, the next thing I like to do is graphite from a pencil is really good to rub inside of the nut. This will create a very good lubricant so that way it doesn't get the string binding inside of the nut.
Okay, so now we're finally ready to put the strings on. And I know it seems like a lot of work, but your guitar will appreciate it, and it will give you a lot of pleasure for a lot of years if you do things properly. So now that we're going to put the strings on, we're going to open the strings. Sometimes they get stuck. And they usually come when they're in one pack, they'll come wound 2 strings per circle. Now again, like we told you in the beginning, we're going to follow the guide and put each string on individually in its right spot. Now when you're putting strings on, there's a couple different types of strings that go, ways strings go on a guitar. This guitar in particular is a string through. So you feed the strings through the back of the body on the guitar itself. Now, while you're doing this, first thing you should do is open up your strings.
This guitar, the strings go through the bridge. There's a tail piece, this is called, and it goes right over the bridge, where that one goes through the body of the guitar.
Okay, so now that we have our strings all separated, just a fair warning, when they're together like that, sometimes they get a little tangled together. Just take your time, you don't want to screw them up. So as we said, we're going to follow our chart here that tells us which string goes where. So we look at the back. That loop right there is brass. We take a look at our chart and it says brass is your low E string, your 6th string. Now, as we discussed, we feed it through the back. And we pull it out the front. And you just repeat that step for all your strings. Our A string or our 5th string is red. So, we feed the red string through. Alright, so now we've got all the strings through. You're going to start with your low E. You want to put tension on it. Bring it up. Measure. It's going to be a lot longer than the neck. That's a good thing. It's too short and you're kind of up Chocolate Creek without a popsicle stick. Okay, so then now your tuners, you want the holes facing sideways to the neck, perpendicular. You put this through and you pull. You don't pull it tight like this because you have to wind it. So you back it off enough to get about 3 turns, which should be roughly about there. Bend this string up and bring it back through. Okay, and that'll kind of help hold it in place. Then you want to hold tension on it. You want to hold tension on it when you start winding. You will have to guide the strings a little bit at first when you first start. And just hold tension and wind them down. Your biggest thing is your second wrap you want going under that knot. Once you get there, you should be okay. You might have to keep doing it though. Until it gets wound, but it'll eventually go like a screw. And use your thumb to kind of stabilize the guitar where it's supposed to be. Alright, so we've got the other 4 on. You saw the low E go in. Now we're going to do the high E. This one tends to be a little bit of a pain. Just because it's so thin, it doesn't have any wrapping on it. And a lot of times what it likes to do when you're trying to tune it in, or when you're trying to wind it in, it tends to like to slide around on you. So there's a few different ways you can do this. The way I'm going to show you is just the way I do it. Doesn't mean you have to do it. What I like to do is put the knot in here and then bring it back through the tuner. Give it a tug. You don't have to worry about too much excess on this one because it's not going to go anywhere once that knot's in there. And we're going to wind it down. Make sure it lines up on the nut. We're going to wind it down in. Alright, so our next step is going to be tuning it, but before we do that, and I know you see some rock stars do it, you see some guys do it. We don't leave these tails. These spaghetti noodles right here are dangerous. They can take an eye out. You can hurt yourself, you can hurt somebody else, and really cause some problems. So you just take your side cutters. Well, here, I'll show you. You just take your side cutters. Just clip it off. That's all you do. Clip. Look at that. Clean. No mess. No nothing. Nobody's gonna get hurt. Whoa. Make sure you don't try and cut the other string off, because then you got to go through all this again. Now, as far as changing your strings goes, I'll cut the rest off down here. I don't want to make a mess all over the floor with strings. As far as changing your strings, how often? Usually, if you break them, well, if you break them, you have to change them. That's a given, unless you can figure out how to do 5-string music on a 6-string guitar, in which case you're not watching our videos. Or you know, they'll start to sound dead. They'll come out of tune a lot. Sometimes they just get real grimy. I mean, that's really it. And you know, when you have the extra scratch, strings, like I said, they only run between $6 and, well, they can go up to $30 a pack, depending on what you're getting. But basic strings are fine. These are Diodarios. Diodario makes a decent string. Ernie Ball with their power slinkings makes a decent string. You know, but you don't need anything crazy. We're not going to play Wembley Stadium here. We're just changing out strings for a jam around. Now, next we're going to show tuning. Okay, so now we've cleaned up our workspace. We're going to tune the guitar. Now, I'm just going to tune it to E standard. There's 1,000 different tunings we can use. Everything from E standard to your heavier tunings, which we're not going to get into. So most tuners, I use a standard tuner on my phone. They work just as well as the tuners you'll buy in a guitar shop, and they're usually free in the Play Store or the App Store. The only problem with them is you have to be quiet while you're tuning them, because they will pick up on every little sound that's out there. So now, before we start, I'm going to show you this. When you pluck a string, if you turn, and then to tune it high, you go up. Okay? So away from the guitar is high, toward the bottom of the guitar is going to tune it down low. What you want to do when you're tuning, once you get it right where you kind of want it, give it a little pull on the string. Not hard, don't go crazy, we don't want to rip it off, you just want to give it a little stretch. As you can see, when it hits where you want it, it'll turn green. Okay, so while we pause the video, because sometimes this can take a while, and I didn't think you wanted to sit here and watch me for 15 minutes trying to get new guitar strings in tune. There's a couple things to remember when you first put new strings on. You're going to be tuning it a couple different times. They got to stretch, they got to seat. They got to break in a little bit, and as annoying as that can be, there's nothing like playing on a set of fresh strings. Now, what's cool about this guitar, and I'm going to hand this over to Dave in a second, and he's going to talk about intonation. What's cool about this guitar is not only are we going to do a review on it now that we've set it up and restrung it, we're actually going to be using this guitar in a giveaway. Eventually, down the line. But now I'm going to hand the video over to Dave, and he's going to talk to you about intonation.
Okay, so now we have the guitar completely in tune. So what I like to do is I like to go over it. Okay, so for intonation, you're going to do the same thing, but you're going to put your finger on the 12th fret. So as you can see, this one is out. Seems like they're all a little high. Okay, so what we're going to do for intonation, these screws in the back of the saddles. These are called string saddles. The screws in the back of these saddles, you adjust them to go forward and backwards. And you also adjust them for string height, which we can go over in a little while. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust these until the tuner is back into the green. So you could loosen it by going forward or tighten it by going backward. Okay, so now we're in green and we're in green. So now that's proper intonation. So to give you an idea of what I'm seeing over here, we're in green and we're in green. Okay, this is a string action ruler. I like my action a little lower. This one is riding, you start at the last fret. This is riding at about 3.5 millimeters. And this one's a little under 3.5. I like my 12th fret around 3, or my 6th string around 3. I like the first string around 2.75. So if you look on the gauge, this has to come down to about there. If you look at the bridge, there are little Allen screws. Those will adjust the axis and the height of the string. That's how you adjust your action, by raising and lowering the string height by adjusting the left and right. Allen screws will then raise and lower. But you have to remember, if you're going to turn one side about a quarter turn, you also want to turn the other side about a quarter turn to keep the string level.